Hello friends, my name is Carlos Rios and I am the founder of Pixels to Music. I am here to help you become a successful, highly skilled, and knowledgeable video game composer. It can be rather challenging sometimes to get unstuck and overcome writer's block. And today I'm going to be teaching you a few strategies that I use whenever I'm feeling uninspired and need to come up with musical ideas fast. As a bonus, I will share with you 3 iOS and iPad OS apps that I often use whenever I'm trying to come up with quick new melodies, drum loops, bass lines, or sound design ideas. So make sure to stick around until the end of the video to check them out. So one aspect of music making that paralyzes composers is having too many ideas at once, okay? Creativity is chaotic. It is unrestrained freedom and hence not true freedom at all. So how can you become a free composer when you're paralyzed, right? When you're bound by a flood of ideas? And this is, in all honesty, this is what I often struggle with the most. I come up with too many ideas too quickly and aim in all kinds of directions and don't get anything done. So a successful piece of music, however, is focused, right? It tells a story and it expresses a cohesive emotion or idea. The big picture here is that if you're feeling paralyzed by having too many ideas and you don't know where to start, and by the way, this probably means that you have a million projects that you've started and hardly any that you've actually finished, right? What you need to do is give yourself limitations. The answer is this: give yourself limitations. Build fences, create structures and rules for your work. So say something like, I'm only going to use 5 notes to create this melody, or something like, I'm going to use an AABB song structure, etc. Building a framework or system in which your ideas can freely inhabit is going to help you produce music faster and with more focus and cohesiveness. Now, there are many ways that you can create these kinds of limitations for yourself, but let me tell you of a couple of approaches that I use. One way to give yourself limitations and create a simple system is to create a template in your DAW. So Logic Pro allows you to use templates that you can load to start a new project. Now, if your DAW doesn't have this option, you can always create a folder and call it templates, where you can keep all of them. And whenever you're going to start a project, you can just make copies of the template and then rename it later. So templates let you program in what instruments you want, what basic effects processing you're going to be using, your mastering plugins, etc. This approach is especially useful whenever you're creating music in a specific genre and you know you will be needing a specific set of plugins. And yeah, it also happens to be a great productivity and time-saving tool. So not having to think about what instruments and processing you're going to be using can help you start generating music ideas quickly. It's often starting with a blank slate, a blank piece of paper that is so intimidating and it's paralyzing. Or you have too many things to throw in it that it's gonna be hard to make sense of it. Having a template helps you circumvent those issues and just allows you to start making music quickly. So another similar approach to using a template is to just stick to traditional instrumentations. By instrumentations, I mean like specific groupings of instruments that are used commonly. So things like string quartets, brass quintets, woodwind quintets, solo instrument plus piano is a very famous one. That kind of thing, right? Now, believe it or not, there are a couple of traditional quote-unquote instrumentations in video game music, and all you have to do is remember that a lot of classic video game titles were composed on very limited hardware. So there's that idea of limitation again, right? Some of the most iconic music from the video game genre was so constrained, so limited, and yet we have so much beauty out there coming from it and so much coolness and fun and excitement, right? Again, as an example, the NES console had a sound chip with only 4 monophonic channels and this puny sampler channel that sounded terrible to create sound. You could create a template with 4 monophonic 8-bit channels and a tiny little sampler and then call that your template. And that can be a template for making 8-bit music. Do keep this in mind. The point is not to create too many limitations so that your ideas are now constrained, right? but enough limitations so that your ideas can move around freely within a system that you have the ability to mold into something that people's ears, to some degree, can make sense out of. As I just mentioned, a problem that can arise as a consequence of creating too many limitations is to create music that is too constrained, right? This is the opposite problem from before. In this case, extreme constraints like this will also paralyze composers because they will be afraid of yet again producing the same kind of sound, the same kind of track, using the same plugins, the same samples, and the same instruments, right? So that's the fear of using templates and things like that all the time, that it'll constrain your creativity. So again, you gotta find that balance. So what if you're having this issue? You have too many templates, you're just doing the same stuff over and over again, and everything you make starts sounding the same, right? We have the opposite problem. Like I said, we're not generating ideas because we're afraid and we're insecure, thinking that our music is not going to be fresh and unique, and that instead it is going to be the same old kind of track that we always end up creating. So here's the answer. The composer for the Doom Eternal soundtrack, Mick Gordon, who is an amazing composer and producer and musician and everything, he gives us the answer to overcoming this problem. And he does it in his genius lecture at the 2017 Game Developers Conference, the GDC of 2017. The reason that he says that the reason that we keep producing the same kind of music is that we have developed a system so restraining that it only allows for a particular output to come out, right? No matter what we input, it's so restrained that the same kind of stuff is going to keep coming out. So the formula that Mick Gordon gives is change the process to change the outcome. Pretty simple, really. You just have to use a different process than you usually use, and you will generate new ideas. So say something like, I usually compose using my guitar, instead I'm going to use a piano, or vice versa, right? Or something like, I always compose with a 4/4 time signature. Instead of doing that, I'm going to compose with a 7/8 time signature, or something crazy like that. So here are a couple of ways to change your process and start coming up with new music ideas fast. My go-to DAW is Logic Pro, but when I'm trying to come up with something different, I will likely grab my iPad and just load Chord Gadget 2 or Beatmaker 3 to generate different ideas. The process for creating music is so different that I always end up with something that I can't imagine I would have produced had I just taken my usual starting point in Logic Pro, right? So try using a different DAW that you are comfortable using. I'm not saying to go spend a bunch of money and buy a bunch of DAWs. There are tons of free ones and, trials, so try some of those. Another great way of coming up with ideas and breaking the mold is improvising. So improvising is easy and challenging at the same time. If you're trying to improvise something that is cohesive and ready to be consumed by an audience, then you need to take a very technical approach to improvisation. This is not what I'm suggesting here. Instead, I simply recommend that you grab your favorite instrument, get a recording app on your phone or a handheld recorder, hit the big red button, and just start making some noise. Randomly, whatever comes up to your mind, do it. See what you come up with. Now, if you have a specific prompt, you can give yourself a bit of a limitation. I'm gonna make tense and energetic music, or I'm gonna make happy music with a mid-tempo, right? That kind of limitation. And you can focus it a little bit and improvise within those restraints. It doesn't really matter how great or terrible your improvisation skills are. What matters is that you generate as many ideas as possible and capture them in a recording. Afterward, this is where the magic happens. Afterward, you must go and listen through the chaos you generated and listen now with the ears of an audience. Not just as a composer, but pick out if anything is good or usable. You will be surprised when trying this approach. Ideas that you felt sounded like garbage while you were improvising can sound amazing whenever you listen to them as a spectator. Okay, a great book I recommend to content creators and really all creators in general, it's Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. The idea of the book is not that you should steal content and plagiarize, right? The idea is for you to pay attention to what other people have produced. Pay attention to what other people have produced and take their ideas and then make them your own, right? One of my composition professors in college taught me that we compose what we hear. That's it. We compose what we hear. Another way of thinking about it is that the music we produce and the art we create is never 100% unique. Every piece of music art we create is deeply influenced by all that we have consumed. This is not something you must fear or reject, right? We should avoid just straight out copying things. You just need to be aware of it and make sure that you're not simply copying other people's music verbatim. Instead, understand where your influences come from and add your own flavor, your own unique, taste to whatever you produce. Now, these are a couple of musical elements you can steal to produce your own music. Chord progressions, all right. There are several chord progressions that are commonly used and they just work. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. Just find a song or a piece of music that you like and do a quick analysis of the chord progression. You could alternatively look up the chords for the song using a website such as ultimateguitar.com, or you can purchase the cheat music and then just extract it. A very widely used chord progression is a 1-5-6-4 progression. Choose a major key and try playing these chords. You can also use variations in this progression to come out with more progressions. A similar approach would be to listen to your favorite song and take it apart in terms of overall structure. So most music would have at least 2 or 3 sections, although there are quite a few tracks out there that have more. The way that I think of these sections is A section for verses, B section for the chorus or hook, and then the C section is for a song's bridge. To steal a song form, listen for the order of these sections and use that song structure in your own composition. A very common song form looks like this: verse, verse, chorus, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Hey, thank you so much for sticking around so far. I'm going to tell you about those 3 iOS and iPadOS apps that I often use to come up with musical ideas. But before I do that, I want to let you know about this free guide I put together to help you generate chord progressions. So I find myself often going to the same chords and creating the same harmonies over and over when creating new songs, right? Talk about too many limitations. So I developed this small guide to help me break the mold and to create new interesting chord progressions, right? You can download it for free by following the link in the description. Hopefully, if you enjoyed the video so far, this is really just about that. It's ways to have limitations and at the same time building systems where you can roam free, your ideas can roam free, right? That's what this guide is about. So again, links in the description. I hope it helps you come up with tons of cool new ideas. All right, so these are the apps. Flip. Flip is a powerful music production app. It allows you to quickly sample sounds, tweak them, and apply sound effects to them. You can then use your own samples with a MIDI sampler. You can automate a bunch of different parameters. The app was developed by Andrew Huang, who is one of my favorite all-time YouTubers, and he did it alongside a team of just experienced veteran app developers. This second app, as well as the last one, they're both created by Invention. This one's called Blockswave. It lets you come up with ideas almost immediately. You can add your own loops, use the included ones, or you can purchase loops from their little store. You can change the key and tempo of your tracks, as well as doing some simple EQing and sample slicing. Groovebox, the design is very similar because, again, they're designed by the same company. This app gives you significantly more freedom to write what you want. It has a bass synthesizer, a monophonic synthesizer, 2 polyphonic synthesizers, and it has a drum box, right? There are your limitations. Those are your instruments. Now get to work, right? It has an instrument view as well as a MIDI editor view. You can export your individual tracks and use them in Blockswave if you want, which is pretty neat. This is a great tool to, again, quickly generate interesting melodic ideas, bass lines, and cool drum sections. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you found lots of inspiration from it. Let me know what you think in the comment sections below. That's all for today, friends. Goodbye.